I'm coming up. Hi there, my name is Nathan. Welcome to the human experience. And today you could say I'm rolling around like a pig in mud. Yeah, I thought this was quite an appropriate background to kind of sum up the era. Oh, you're gonna have to excuse the pigs. To kind of sum up the era that humanity is going through. So I was thinking along the lines of, what will this moment in time be remembered for? And, you know, I thought that the pigs kind of symbolize this in many kind of ways. One, for us, symbolizing us being, as the phrase goes, as greedy as a pig. And in another way, even the way that if we see this place, that the way we've commodified the pig, we've commodified ourselves to the point where everything is kind of done with the goal of profits and efficiency. And that's why these pig pens are the way they are, because they just put them in a set plot of land that is enough for them to graze on, give them a little shed to house them in, and just do the bare minimum for them to be growing, basically, and then go into the food production, into the meat industry. So yeah, I mean, I get that I'm not arguing whether we should or shouldn't eat meat. I'm just saying that it shows our time, isn't it? Everything is done for profits, maximize profits. And again, like I said, this feeds to ourselves. So as well as these pigs, in a sense, being kind of slaves to a system, we're slaves to a system. You know, we're wage slaves. So we know that we're going to have to do a work life of maybe 30, 40 years plus to survive. You know, you get your mortgage, maybe you get your car to go to work, and that's it. You just do that constantly. So yeah, it's one of them moments where we weigh up, what are we going to be remembered for in this time? And I don't say that to have a go at us necessarily and be doom and gloom. I say it to say that if we're remembered for this kind of commodification, capitalism, you know, materialism, kind of, I don't know, we kind of are very immature with money, with our spirituality. We've kind of lost our way, and we're feeling it. You know, again, I always go to the epidemic of mental health, the feeling of despair, of lack of, you know, just amongst the general feeling like of individuality, like we're very segregated. You know, we go back to our homes, our little box, and watch our little box, and then sleep in our little box, and get food in a little box, and you know, everything has just become so kind of routine. So, you know, it's a time we're living in, and again, like I say that to say that hopefully one day we move past this era. That's why I'm optimistic that maybe, you know, as one of my friends said before, even on the individual level, maybe we have to hit rock bottom before we think of making a change. And we've been like that many times in life. You know, if you look to the way we've had to, civilization, have come and gone, yeah, like either they didn't make it, or if they continued into the modern era, they had to adapt and change. They couldn't carry on living the way they was. So it's always a learning curve. That's where I'm kind of easy on as humans, that yes, we're not always doing the right thing or in the right way, but many of us are trying. Many of us just feel trapped in a system, a bit like these pigs again in the pen. You know, this wire is electrified. They're not going anywhere. You know, they could get together, sacrifice one to break the fence and get over. You know, they could figure it out, I'm sure, but they're kind of, at the minute, the way they are, they're not even interested in me. They're just given their food and they're just foraging and just eating, and yeah, they're occupied basically. And the way that again feeds into humanity is we're kind of pacified with so many things, whether it's obviously food, as in fast food, you know, alcohol and drugs, even entertainment. You know, everything is at our fingertips. Comfort and luxury. You know, you want to go on holiday, you want to go on to some kind of activity or event, you know, night clubbing, there's so many things that you can do. You want to get into comic books, you want to get into books, into films, into some kind of hobby. And I get it, we need them things. They're great activities, but sometimes what are they distracting us from? You know, I know some guys, they work all week just so they can go and do some hobby, just to get by, just to get through the rest of the week. Is that the way it should be? Is that our best life? Is that living our best life? Like I say, I'm optimistic that we can change for the better in the future. It's going to take a massive shift in mindset. You know, we have to kind of, I know this term is getting used a lot, but we do have to wake up. Like these pigs, they're daydreaming. They're just going through the motions. And I feel that's what we're doing. We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. You know, I'm 39 years old now. And yeah, I've been seeing the problems, but what have I been doing? And even in doing this channel, I wanted to speak out to people to generate that new kind of, what could you say? That new kind of possibility. Yeah, that new way forward, to give that light, to shine that light on the way forward. Because that's all it's going to take, a mindset shift. I've always said this, that we created this world the way it is. No one forced us. The universe didn't force us. God didn't force us. You know, we put it upon ourselves. Yeah, and it goes really deep. It goes really, really deep. You know, I've been following this professor, and it's all right, just hearing the pig there. I've been following this professor online, Predictive Histories. I'll put his channel name up in the bottom there. And he's been saying about how he predicts things through history, but like, imagine we could shift that mindset so that we could do it for the better. You know, rather than predicting the downfall of civilization, do something for the better. So yeah, he talks about the secret history of humanity and the fact that, you know, we've had these secret societies running for a long time, since really developed civilization, even to the point of like tribes. We've had these little secret societies, what are just packs. They're nothing mysterious. They're just packs kind of thing. And I'm going to have the farmer coming up now, so he's probably going to tell me off. But yeah. Just these pacts, you know, you do me a favor, I do you a favor. It's these handshake agreements, these little nods and winks, these backhanders that have just gone on since the dawn of time. Sometimes it's through family lineage, sometimes it's through wealth, power, whatever, government. But it's just to say that these people are just people. And if we can kind of guide them towards a better world and not just holding on to what they have, because we all want the level of living that we're at, but when do we give that up for the greater good of the collective? You know what I'm saying? When do we do that? So I think the farmer's going to speak to me now, so I'll have a quick word with him. The farmer's actually not interrupting me. So yeah, moving ahead, solutions. I don't want to just be doom and gloom. I want to think about solutions, and some of them things are creating new policies, I think, and also sorting out internally what is going on. You know, we're all a bit troubled. You know, there's this thing of people kind of self-medicating on recreational drugs and self-medicating on pharmaceutical drugs. So what is that about? You know, why are we doing that? Why do we feel the need to do that? You know, we're not fulfilled in our work. We're not fulfilled in our relationships sometimes, as in, you know, we're so stuck to this system, this 9-to-5 system, or this achievement system, that we're not putting off all into our relationships, whether that's family, partners, even our kids. So we wonder why kids are going around being unruly, you know what I mean? And this whole epidemic of kids getting into gangs and stabbing each other, especially in the UK. It's not every kid, I'm not saying it's a majority, but you can just see this wave of like poor behavior and kind of feeling lost amongst the teenagers growing and growing. So yeah, you know, I think that's part of the solution, working with ourselves from within. You know, this is an amazing thing, to be alive, to see the sunshine, to feel the breeze, you know, to be amongst nature, even if you're not in natural surroundings. This is what it's all about. And of course, if we're in a factory or an office and we're not engaging with these things, we're going to feel like shit. We're going to feel lost, you know, or we're going to just be like the pigs. We're not even going to see past the horizon of what is possible for us, for humanity, as well as the rest of the world. You know, on a final kind of note, I just want to say that, yeah, rather than, you know, as a metaphor again, than penning ourselves in this rigid structure of capitalism and, you know, you can only live this way and be ambitious, why don't we see beyond the pen? Why don't we, for argument's sake, you know, step over, I'll do it in the metaphor, step over the line, step over the fence, or mental fence, and be brave to walk forward into a new kind of lifestyle, a new kind of way of living. You know, be more open with each other, be more honest. So yeah, that's all I've got time for now on Welcome to the Human Experience. I'll see you next time.